Got it.
Driving on Hawkins. Firing.
Got him. Pass the ball. Is your takeaway there, Mike? Pass the ball. Look at that plummet right there. That looks like my stock portfolio this last month. Deshaun Watson. He weighed in at 464 pounds at his pro day. He ran a 5.93 40-yard dash.
Dang.
You're impressed by that, right? 460 pounds.
yeah.
This is the same kinetic energy as a 240-pound linebacker running a 3.03 40-yard dash.
Wow.
Quite possibly the most impressive physical thing we have seen at a pro day ever. Special day yesterday, MLB opening day, start of the MLB season, the start of 162 games this year. And really cool, there's a streak alive from Tyler O'Neill. He's with the Orioles now. And he has hit a home run on opening day 6 years in a row. This is incredibly impressive. Really quick, let's just take a look at this.
Fly ball to right field. It is hit well, and it is gone. A 3-run home run. Tyler O'Neill.
His dad with a funny hat.
Opening day again.
Why is he so red?
He's just an Irishman, Scott. His last name's O'Neill. That's what Irish people look
I love
like.
it.
Shout out to Ben Horner.
It.
So this is crazy. 6 years in a row, he's hit a home run on opening day. And I'm wondering what you guys think. Like, how crazy is this? And what is the equivalent accomplishments in other sports, like in football, in basketball? How crazy is this?
It might be easier to equate it to a defensive big play, like a pick or pick six, or a forced fumble or a big sack.
I like that a lot, Mike. I think it's the equivalent would be like an interception. Like that's way crazier. Like this dude has an interception on the first game of the year 6 years in a row. Like that's pretty. I think would be a good equivalency.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to compare it to like a punt return touchdown, that doesn't equate, right?
No, that's too rare, Mike. No, too far.
I didn't look at the numbers really well. But I'm just spitballing here.
You should have the statistical frequencies of these big plays in sports memorized. You're a sports podcaster. Speaking of, we have also with the Dodgers opening day, Shohei Ohtani, the biggest superstar in the world right now in baseball. Also, of course, opened it up with a home run.
Shohei hits this one to left. It's carrying over the wall.
And it's kind of cool seeing like, okay, Tom Hanks, Magic Johnson, like Ice Cube was there. He came out and did something with the first pitch. I know they were also celebrating winning the World Series last year, so that's always kind of like an extra special opening day. But there's something cool about seeing baseball have these celebrities at their games, similar to we always see at like football games, and some of these really big stars. I don't know. It does feel like culturally there's maybe, at least in some of these big markets, a little bit of a swing back in popularity for baseball, don't you think?
Yeah, at least on the surface. But look, MLB opening day for a lot of even small town, call it small market cities, like Cincinnati has been known to have one of like the greatest opening day celebrations and everything like that. And then you got Pittsburgh. Granted, they haven't been worth a lick for quite some time, but now they got Paul Skeens on the mound and everything like that. So there's some hope in that city for the first time in a while for the Pirates. And then, yeah, the small market teams have always embraced it in a way that I don't think like the big markets have always, because they're always kind of like front and center in the limelight, everything like that. So you're always going to get celebrities going to the Dodgers game, but that doesn't mean that there's not deep fandom. I'm just saying like MLB opening day on a whole I saw some wild asinine take that it was as big as the Super Bowl. But I mean, hey, if you spread it across the entire nation and each of those small markets has like such a celebration, maybe
if you add up, 20 games that are going on, and that equals one. No, not even then. No, not even then. That's ridiculous. What a horrible take.
Maybe not in viewership, but maybe in just like the general vibe about the city.
But still, no, absolutely not. The Super Bowl is damn near an American holiday. Should be an American holiday. Opening day, while cool culturally, and it is cool with markets like Cincinnati really celebrating it. because baseball is, it's America's pastime. It's been something very quintessentially American, and opening day is sort of a celebration of that. I saw a bunch of stuff on Twitter, X, just people at the ballpark, posting photos of their hot dog, of their food. And it's just, it's a little bit, to me, a celebration of American culture, opening day. Not just limited to a sporting events, if that makes sense. It's kind of a little bit broader. And so I do think there's something quite special about opening day, but to compare it to the Super Bowl, absolutely ridiculous. Okay. You know what else is ridiculous here, though? I mean, we've talked about how baseball ratings have been struggling a little bit and kind of questioning some of the decisions that leadership in MLB have been making. Granted, they have made a couple good moves in the last few years, like raising the pitching mounds, adding the pitching clock. But look at this scheduling for opening day right here. Okay. So for those just listening, 1 o'clock, no games, 2 o'clock, no games, 3 o'clock, 2 games, 4 o'clock, 9 games, no games at 5, no games at 6, 1 game at 7, and then 2 games at 10. It's like very, very poorly staggered or poorly spaced out to where people could really enjoy opening day. Like if you wanted to sit around all day and just watch all these games, one every hour, or really stagger it. Well, just the scheduling of this did not allow it. What do you think about this? Does it make you question MLB leadership?
Yeah, the scheduling of this is so odd, and I get the sense that it was like MLB knew that it was going up against Sweet 16, the first batch of Sweet 16 games, like when they were scheduling this stuff, and I almost get the sense that it was like, oh, we'll show you that we can get some of those viewership and some of those eyeballs, and we can show you that we're dominant. I'm going to be curious to see how those numbers actually shake out, because 9 games at 4 o'clock, which I think was tip off for the first game, is just wild.
Yeah, what is it? Are you trying to go head to head with the Sweet 16? I mean, I think that's an interesting theory right there. Like, hey, look, we can draw these audience. We'll see. I don't know. I think the ratings will come out in a few days, and we'll see what the viewership was. But I mean, I don't want to bash too hard on them. It's cool always to see the ballparks pretty filled up, because as the season goes on. And there's something special about that. Right at the start of the season, everyone's excited about it. And then, of course, playoff baseball. There is something very special about having those ballparks filled up, because I don't like when you're checking out baseball throughout the middle of the summer and it's low stakes and the ballparks are 3/4 empty. It's just not a good look. And, go ahead.
For opening day, like, it's a huge celebration across many, many different places in the nation. So, like, I wonder if a lot of people, if they moved it up, if it would still have the same sort of turnout. And I bet you that's probably why they back-ended that in the day.
That's a good point, actually, because I feel like opening day is much more of an in-person event, whereas the Super Bowl, which we were talking about earlier, to me, of course, a good handful of people, or a good amount of people, attend the Super Bowl, but it's really the biggest TV show, whereas opening day feels very much in person. It doesn't have that same weight television wise as something like March Madness, where people are setting up multiple TVs and stuff like that. So I think that there's something to that. So speaking of March,
do you think that MLB has got to have the highest fluctuation rate in terms of attendance throughout a season versus any other sport?
Oh, well,
yeah. I know that at least, I don't know about like throughout the season, but I know in terms of teams, like you have, I think the Oakland A's were averaging like 5,000, 4,000 people at home games. So it's like, what is this, an ELF game? And then at the high end with like the Yankees and the Dodgers, you have tens of thousands. So there's a huge disparity there. And I'd be curious to look at it throughout the course of the season of how it adjusts. So opening day, welcome back baseball. Scott, I know you're excited. Cincinnati Reds, Cleveland Guardians. There you go. All right. March Madness, speaking of it, we had the first round of the Sweet 16, and we actually got a little bit of March Madness magic here with that Texas Tech Arkansas game. This is wild. Texas Tech was down, I think, 16 points at one point in the game. Game goes to overtime. Let's check this out.
Knox will pick him up. Williams corkscrews up, off, and down. Wagner with it.
Got it.
Driving on Hawkins. Firing.
Got him.
Pass the ball.
Is your takeaway there, Mike? Pass the ball?
Yeah. Well, yes. Who do you think you are?
He thinks he's Michael Jordan right there. I'm wondering why John Calipari did not take
Yeah.
timeout. They had a timeout right there. You get the ball right at half court, draw up a play, and create a better shot than that. That was not a good shot for your attempt at making the Elite Eight right there. What do you think?
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, don't you think sometimes calling a timeout can sometimes help them defensively more so than it can help them offensively? Like give them time to really come up with a good plan to stop them versus just letting that full court run.
Maybe that's what Calipari was possibly thinking. Like, all right, let him go. Let him go. Let's see if we can do it. What were you going to say, Scott?
Well, I was going to say he even came out admittedly saying like, "Oh, I wish I did call a timeout." But over his storied career and his historic coaching career, he's never really done that. He's always let things ride out, and that to me as a player is showing confidence in your team and your athletic ability and just trusting your dudes, right, that you've put on the court to know the situation and to go full bore and knowing you have to score and put the ball in the bucket. Like that's what they do best. So I think in this moment, that's probably what he was doing. But again, it's putting a lot of trust in a younger guy who has probably been in a scenario like this before, but it's at such high stakes in the Sweet 16 that you don't really know what's going to happen. So obviously hindsight is 2020. You can go back and say, hey, you definitely should have called the timeout. What are you doing? But then there's also an element of this where it's kind of, I don't want to put all the blame on Calipari because it's like, even as a player, you have to know situational ball, right? And if you know that you have a timeout in your back pocket and you yourself are losing your handle, like in the last couple seconds, like, and you're off pace, call it yourself.
I mean, you could see him be like he was losing control, and it got desperate every tick of the clock.
Yeah, and so like I don't want to put all the blame on Calipari. Granted, he is the leader of the team and probably should have done it, but that's just not how he's rolled in the past. And he's had such great athletes on his teams before that he's just like, you know what, ball's in your hands, literally, go do it.
There is something to be said, kind of what Mikey was saying and what you were saying as well, is that it does show a level of confidence in the players. But at the same time, man, probably, I mean, he's clearly said it. He wants that one back. Check this out. This is wild. What do you think? What do you think the win percentage odds were for Texas Tech in that game at their lowest point? When you take into account, you see, those kind of graphs that show win percentage chance throughout the game. How low, how bad do you think it got for Texas Tech?
I mean, they were down double digits with like 6 minutes left and still by like 6 points with a minute and change left. So like that has to have been definitely around 5%, maybe a little lower.
Yeah, you got it right. I mean, a little bit lower, 1.9%.
Oh,
they came back from a one. So Arkansas had a 98.1% chance of victory at 1 point, and look at that plummet right there. That looks like my stock portfolio this last month at the end right there. Sad, very sad. But that's really impressive. Texas Tech, you got to give them the props, man, of them battling back, because it was not a great game for them. And they really, really battled back. And that gave us really this March Madness that I think we've been craving, that everybody's been craving and kind of complaining about, calling it a little bit stale and not so exciting. That gave us that. And so they move on to the Elite Eight. Now we have a couple other Sweet 16 games to check out. Hold on, we've got BYU, Alabama. Or do you have something else to say on this game?
Yeah, I was gonna say, furthering that comment right there about like, oh, March Madness this year is not the same because of the lack of the Cinderella stories. Well, look, okay, I've said it in the past couple episodes too. It's just, one, I get the sense that that's a whole lot of lack of gratitude coming out. It's like, when the Cinderellas happen, they're incredibly special, and that's why we cherish them, and that's why we love them. It doesn't happen every year. Secondly, the good thing about there not being Cinderella stories is, like, historically, even when there is a lower seed team, I mean, Arkansas, beside the point, because they're SEC, they got the money, they got Calipari at the helm. When those lower seeds do come in and play the higher seeds, historically, they've gotten spanked. Absolutely. Yes. It's like, okay, nobody wants to see a deflated game in the Sweet 16 when there were only so few remaining. So, to a certain extent, like, I would rather see an absolute, like, nail biter that this was, as opposed to a 18-point blowout, hopes dashed halfway through the first half kind of thing.
Yes, it's essentially a trade-off. Like if you have some of those really big upsets in the first or second round there, it's like, oh, awesome story. But then they get into the Sweet 16 or further rounds, and then it's just the most boring game imaginable. So it's kind of a trade-off. Like we sacrifice some of those possible Cinderellas for better ball games against bigger brands in these later rounds.
There are no solutions to this problem. There are only trade-offs, and this is a good example of that.
I love that quote. That is a great quote. All right. Moving on to another game in the Sweet 16 here. Alabama, BYU. Now, Alabama made 25 three-pointers. I repeat, 25 three-pointers. What was the final? The final score was, 115 or 115 to 88, something like that. And this stat right here, if Alabama had not made a single 2-point shot against BYU, they still would have won the game with all of their three-pointers and then free throws. That is unbelievable. They were shooting. I think they set a March Madness tournament record for three-pointers made. Thoughts on this?
Insane. I mean, this is NBA stuff. This is exactly how NBA teams approach games. More threes, more points, higher percentage chance of winning. So like Alabama was just actually putting the ball in the bucket and they just kept pushing it that way. And generally we don't get to see this in the college ranks because for all intents and purposes, college players, while they may be of a super high level of competitiveness and good at basketball, they don't put the ball in the bucket the same way NBA players do. But in this game, Alabama absolutely was.
The thing is that I wonder, can they replicate that? Can they replicate that in the Elite Eight? I mean, they're playing Duke, I believe, and that's going to be tough to make 25 three-pointers again. And like, it's not like BYU didn't play well or like didn't play great defense. It's just, how do you stop that? BYU still put up a good amount of points. They played hard. Yeah. And so I don't know. It feels a little fluky to me. The other thing about this game is the technical foul. Oh, sorry, wrong. Where'd it go? Hold on. There it is. Technical foul for a BYU player looking at an Alabama player. Look at this.
I mean, it's a big shot for BYU, Jim.
That is so nothing right there. That is incredibly soft. And look, I am 99% of the time pro official, as I am one of them, and I am in the guild. I'm a card-carrying member of the basketball official community. But that's ridiculous and silly and soft. Also, it's BYU. Those are nice guys. He doesn't mean anything by it. It's just a little intimidating look. What do you think?
There are other taunts that are far more egregious that should be called. The staring down of a player, this is a nothing burger and shouldn't be called in many, many different situations. This is akin to like, while I hate the celebration, the NFL just ruling that the nose swipe of CeeDee Lamb is now a 15-yard penalty taunting call.
Yeah, how does the nose swipe go? What is it? What is the celebration?
Give it a try, Nick.
It's that? It's
this? It's the first. Yeah, it's like the first down. Instead of doing just like a first down like that, they swipe their nose and point in the direction. So CeeDee Lamb, that's just like his staple and go-to. But apparently now that's too much taunting.
We gotta allow a little bit of this stuff. Like,
yeah,
not none of the weapon stuff and the guns thing. Of course, get that out of here. But turning and looking at your opponent, he didn't even say anything. You just looked at him. It's like a stare down for half a second, and you get a technical foul. Very, very silly to me. Although I don't think
it's also very subjective, right? Because what if he was just looking, making sure that the guy didn't fall into the scores table and he was okay? Like that could have been what he was doing.
Yeah, look at you, kind-hearted Scott. Always looking at the bright side of things. You're just being a nice sportsman. Okay, that's all he was doing. All right. Well, BYU got smacked, and they're out. I'm sorry for our Mormon friends out of Utah. Now the other Sweet 16 game, my favorite player in college basketball, Cooper Flagg, absolutely dominating against Arizona. He dropped 30 points. Here's just some of his highlights: 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 blocks. Look at this block right here. Guy is all over the place. He can do everything on the basketball court. He's got an incredible, also like defensive motor that's really, really impressive to me. Thoughts on this one, Scott? Did anything surprise you?
No, I think just the more and more I watch Cooper, it's so clear that he's a league above a lot of these guys on the court. He just moves. The way he moves, you can tell he's an NBA player and a high-level NBA player at that. It's really impressive, especially for how young he is.
Flagg, obviously, he's going to go number 1 overall, right? It's like, I mean, this is pretty unanimous. Okay. Now, this is the NBA lottery statistic, current odds right now. And so here you can see in the left-hand column, Mike, pay attention to your left-hand column. You can see 14% chance. 14% chance for Utah, Washington, Charlotte, and then it drops 12.5. And it's interesting to see this. I do like the lottery system that the NBA has. I would kind of like to see it distributed a little bit more evenly, but I would love to see Cooper Flagg go not to the Wizards, not to the Hornets, not to Toronto. I would love to see him go to a Chicago or a Dallas, kind of a bigger market team. I think that he could be very, very impactful and a really, really good draw for marketing for the NBA because he's creating such an audience and such a fandom in college basketball right now. He's really like kind of beloved throughout the country. I would love to see him play for someone like the Chicago Bulls. Where would you like to see him go?
I think the most appropriate fit, honestly, looking at the top of this, would be Utah. We're seeing, and this isn't unnatural or anything like that, but we're seeing a lot of the big names in the NBA, a lot of the talent concentrated in large markets, right? And I think it would actually be a huge boon for the NBA. I mean, you look at OKC and what they got going there. That's a small market for all purposes, and they're just dominating in the West right now. So it's like part of me wants to see the small market teams, being a fan of one of them, the Cleveland Cavs, I want to see them continue to dominate. So him going to Utah would help with parity across the league and keep things less concentrated in the big markets. Because after a while, that's the beauty of football is you see small market teams competing against large market teams. And sometimes the small market teams are just so much more dominant, like Kansas City. And then you got New York teams who are garbage. That's actually like really interesting, and especially for the fandom at large across the country, people don't get bored with just the big name teams and big market teams being all that great. So I would love to see Cooper go to a Utah and see them get back on track. Because boy, ever since Donovan Mitchell left, they have been falling apart.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Although there is something to be said, like and I don't want to be a small market hater at all. I'm with you on a lot of those points, especially in the NFL. I think that's like a beautiful thing that Kansas City and Buffalo are great. But we are seeing a little bit more interest in the NBA with the Celtics being relevant and now the Lakers being very relevant again. And I mean, imagine if the Chicago Bulls, with all that history, were also relevant with a new young star as well. I think, and I'm just thinking in terms of ratings and popularity wise, I think that would be very good for the NBA if Cooper were to go to Chicago.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I would like to see the resurgence of the Bulls because they've been on the cusp ever since D Rose and before his injury. You had Joakim, you had Luol Deng. Having them be an Eastern Conference like dominant team is great for the NBA.
Yes.
I don't know if Cooper's the guy to bring the Bulls into that resurgence. I mean, right now they're 9th in the East. They're struggling a bit and have been for quite some time. But they did just get a buzzer beater on LeBron last night.
Speaking of which, right here, we talk about March Madness. Hits it up by 1 for the Bulls. 6 seconds left.
Crazy
Who's that guy?
I don't know.
6 seconds.
Sir, back to your seat.
Austin
3
Reeves.
seconds. Lakers back up.
Giddy.
Oh my
gosh. What is this game? That's crazy.
So sick.
Unbelievable. That is March Madness right there. The 3 lead changes in 9 seconds and then a half court shot to win the game. And that's at the Bulls, right? Yeah, that's in Chicago.
Yeah.
Like iconic right there. LeBron was playing some lazy as hell defense on that final or on one of those final on the 3-pointer made. Like could have ended that right there if you just hustling a little bit defensively there. But see, look,
that's where basketball is great, is that you can have so many league changes in such a small amount of time when people are trying, when people have something to play for. Like, peak basketball is so exciting to watch because of that possibility.
That is, yeah, it really is. There is such a disparity between like watchable and exciting basketball and boring, stale basketball, low stakes. And the only difference is effort. It's just like you guys try hard. It is so fun to watch. If you're being lazy and playing lazy, it's very, very tough to watch.
How could you put a number on that in someone's contract, an effort incentive? How can you measure that? They wear a heart rate monitor, okay?
Yes.
Your heart rate's over 150 for 10 minutes a game, extra $100,000, something like this.
I like that. Title of this episode: How to Make Athletes Try Harder. we have come to. But look at that magic right there. Bulls, Lakers, awesome game, buzzer beater. Give me Cooper Flagg in that right there. You got Luka, LeBron. Give me Cooper Flagg at Chicago. That's what I want. Okay. Scott, I'm not a small market hater. Okay. I want good ratings. I want popularity for our sports, which it creates for an interesting environment where we have situations and drama like the Stephen A. and LeBron thing. Last thing on this before we move to a little bit on the NFL, just because we're talking about it, what do you guys think? This is LeBron in high school. Okay. And I don't know. I'm not really impressed with his route running right there. Not as crispy.
Well,
okay. This is a drag route, maybe a 10-yard gain. And I'm just not that impressed with the route running, the crispiness. What do you think?
There's that famous LeBron laziness.
That's a good catch right there.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great catch, great stretch. Also, I got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Look at the field he's playing on right now. Look at the swamp that is in the middle of the field and what he was running it. So I even the best of athletes can't necessarily plant and cut in that quagmire, literal quagmire.
Okay, that's fair. But this is just the name of the game back then. When was this? Probably mid 2000s,
early 2000s,
early 2000s. That's what football was. Okay, so you can't be going around and making excuses for everybody, Scott. All right, enough on LeBron. We've hammered it enough for this episode. We will talk about it more again. I've been doing all of this sort of negative jabs at the Cleveland Browns. And like I said, it's because, I'm doing it from relative safety here as we are in the modern social media and podcast world. However, possible thing that I think could be a little bit positive. Kirk Cousins spotted at the Westlake Chipotle, Westlake, Ohio. Okay. Rumor has it that he has been talking to the Cleveland Browns. Scott, you said a couple of shows ago that you think that this would be a good move going after a quarterback or a guy like Kirk Cousins, a vet like this, in this sort of transition period as you guys search for a long-term franchise quarterback. How do you feel about this possibility and these rumors?
I'm happy with this. I would have been, and I hate to admit it to a certain degree, but I would have been happy even if we had grabbed Russell Wilson. I think there needs to be a level of continuity, just veteran presence in a locker room as tumultuous as the Cleveland Browns locker room has been. And that doesn't mean that Myles Garrett hasn't been a consummate professional in the locker room or anything like that. But I think on the offensive side of the ball, there's been such a strange feeling, especially when you're paying a guy that they're paying in Deshaun Watson. There's an expectation. I forgot who mentioned it. It might've been Mikey, but talking about NIL and, when you're paying a guy a certain amount of money, there's a forced pressure in making sure that they play and they play a long period of time. And I get the sense that that's actually happening or did happen this past season or two with Deshaun. It's like there's pressure from the owners being like, hey, we're paying this guy a lot of money. He needs to be on the field regardless of how poorly he is performing. There's a chance and potential that he could improve. So I think that's sort of the situation that the Browns have been in. I think getting a guy like Kirk Cousins would be the best foil to a guy like Deshaun Watson. Talk about going with night and day difference of personality or issues on and off the field, so on and so forth. I get the sense that Kirk Cousins would be a good calming presence in a otherwise crazy locker room. So I'm okay with this.
I agree. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be somebody who's going to take him to the Super Bowl. I think he'd be a great person to restabilize the organization and just get him back to kind of just some sort of standard of winning. And then from there, after a couple of years, they can find somebody to take them to the next level.
Exactly. And also you would go from the alleged least moral quarterback in the NFL to the possible most moral quarterback in the NFL. No.
Look, it's standing on that and furthering Mikey's point there. It's absolutely the case that this needs to happen because I think we prematurely pulled the trigger on sending Joe Flacco out the door and not even offering him a deal to remain. But it goes to my point earlier is I think the reason that happened is because ownership was like, no, we can't have another guy in here who got us to the playoffs competing for a starting job when we're paying this other guy stupid amounts of money. Like that can't happen. So that's why he has to go. Now I think, and hopefully Haslam and the ownership has realized that can't be the way that we operate, especially with the product that he is putting on the field. So, my hope is that this just happens. We need some stability. I don't think Kirk is going to take us to the Super Bowl either. We just need somebody that's going to get us wins. And if we're at the point where if we make the playoffs, thank the Lord.
There we go. I would love to see a Kirk Cousins signing and a Shedeur Sanders drafting. There you have a savvy vet. He could maybe, I don't know, he'll start possibly. And then Shedeur can take over maybe later in the season, maybe after one season. No,
no. I'd rather get Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter and honestly have Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett coming off the edges. That's a scary defense, man. On quarterback.
Hold on. I think I have even a better choice for you. Strike that. Okay. I think you guys need my boy right here. Deshaun Watson. He weighed in at 464 pounds at his pro day. He would become the heaviest player in NFL history. Okay. And he ran a 5.93 40-yard dash.
Dang.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That sounds impressive, right? Scott had a funny post right here. Way to go. Shout out to Scott. Very good. So you're impressed by that, right? 460 pounds. This is the same kinetic energy as a 240-pound linebacker running a 3.03 40-yard dash.
Wow.
Quite possibly the most impressive physical thing we have seen at a pro day ever.
The fact that he is able to move that mass that quickly is frightening. And you got to imagine this guy is a two-gapper just sitting on the field. Just sitting on the field. And that's what this is the foil. I talk about Kirk Cousins being the foil to Deshaun Watson's. This is the foil to the tush push. This is the way in which there's no offensive lineman that's getting leverage on this guy and moving him 1 inch. No chance.
Unbelievable. You need to propose rule changes to ban the tush push. You need to just draft this guy. I forgot which team proposed the rule to ban the tush push. Was it the Packers? It was the Packers, wasn't it? Way to go, Luke. Mike, tell Luke, good job with that proposal. Stupid.
Yeah. Always blaming the rules. Classic.
Blaming the rules.
What is this guy projected? Is he projected to get drafted?
First overall. I'm not sure. We got to look at a mock draft. I think after this,
he's definitely projected to get drafted, but not first round, I don't believe.
Oh, no.
Wow.
But he'll get picked up.
Impressive physical feat, right? One thing so Ashton Genty didn't run his 40 at his pro day. He also didn't run it at the combine. What do you guys think about it? Like, obviously it's a bad look if you run a 40. Like, imagine if he ran even so like a 4.5 or 5 or something like this, which could possibly tumble him a little bit. Because right now he's being talked about as a pretty high draft pick, especially for a running back in this day and age.
Yeah, obviously I think it's a red flag, but I think for this guy with how high he's projected and how much he's separated himself from the rest of the running backs in the class, he can get away with it. And because his running style is more about his contact balance and his patience. It's more kind of like closer to like a Le'Veon Bell kind of style. And Le'Veon Bell ran like a 4.64, if I remember correctly. And so I think his strength is more of his technique versus just outright speed. And I think if he knows if he put out that number, that's going to be the focus and people are going to forget about the other things he brings to the table.
For certain skill positions like wide receiver, I think people who skip the 40 time, that's a huge red flag. But I think with the running back position, it's a little different these days because you're not necessarily looking for a guy, while it's great to have, with breakaway speed. You're looking for a guy who can be incredibly dynamic within the trenches, within the box, and everything along those lines. So I don't necessarily think that the 40 time is as important to the running back anymore as it used to be.
Yeah, I'm with you guys there. I think it's like and we all know that. It's funny
know.
because like it's like unspoken. It's like, okay, like in NFL GMs and coaches and owners and everything, like, okay, don't put a number on paper because but then they know, okay, he's probably not that confident that he's going to run a great number, but they don't care if he doesn't actually do it. It's this weird farce where
Yeah.
we're pretending to care about the 40 time, but you also don't, and you don't care if he doesn't.
Damned if
run
you
it.
do, damned if you don't. It's
Yeah.
like you can, but I think a more important figure would be a 10 to 15 yard sprint for a running back, because that's like the breakaway speed. It's not necessarily like how long can you sustain that. It'd be great to have it, like I said, but at the same time, it's all about being agile and dynamic within the box. How can you make guys miss? And I think Ashton Genty on tape has shown him he's elite in all of that. One of the things too is Cam Scatterbo ended up running his yesterday, and I think he ran like a mid 4.6, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
You might want to double check.
What's
on
he
that.
weigh? He's like 230, isn't he?
pretty good. He's a little
Roughly,
bigger.
I think he's like 5'9", 5'10" too. So that would be a little chunk.
Yeah,
But I mean, I could be mistaken on all those dims, but he did run yesterday, and I wonder if even if he ran, say, like a high 4.5 or a low 4.6, like, does that hurt him?
Well, I think for someone like him, the perception already was like, this guy's not a burner running back. Like, he's not necessarily such a speedster. And that is the perception on him. And like, everybody can openly admit that. Whereas with Genty, we haven't really admitted something like this. So I think actually for Scatterbo, there's kind of nothing but upside in running. And he ran a 4.6, whatever. And it's like, yeah, it seems about right. But I don't think that changes the perception that we have or that GMs have of him. Whereas with Genty, he is perceived right now as so elite that if he ran something other than an incredibly elite 40 time, that would do nothing but hurt him. So I'm fine with Scatterbo running.
Yeah.
Bo's in a position where he has to jump at any opportunity to try and prove himself versus Genty's just trying to protect what he already has.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's probably, that's true. Apparently, okay, so Cam Scatterbo he's 5'9.5" and 219.
What I call him, Bo.
Yeah.
Oh, Mikey's friend Bo.
Well, we could just shorten it. That's his nickname, Bo, Scatterbo. Yeah. So apparently he apparently ran between a 4.53 and a 4.57 range in his private workout Thursday.
Okay, it's pretty good.
So yeah, it's pretty solid.
219. I mean, that's pretty solid for 219. All right, we'll see. I'm very curious to see if he gets drafted or where he ends up. What kind of contributor he would be in the NFL. All right, last thing. This was actually, I hate indie drills in football so much. And I think you should only do 7-on-7 in team right after warm up, which should be just a couple of minutes and kind of voluntary at that. But this is a great drill right here. I would participate in this indie drill. I don't know. Okay, we don't need the music is this from Purdue?
Purdue, yeah.
Yeah, look, turnover circuit drill right here. Like, I would stop pretending that my knee hurt and participate in this drill. I think that this is great right here. What do you guys think about this?
They need it so badly, Purdue. So do more of this, defense. You need to help your offense as much as you possibly can. I think the peanut punch is one of those skills that you can't put on paper, but it's one of the most valuable, especially as a DB. Even linebackers should really, really train to do this, because even when you're meeting a dude in the hole, you got to have the ability to utilize all your skill set. And this is one that I think really separates the good from the great.
Well, also look at like Zach Bond this year. I think it's even for a linebacker who's playing like sideline to sideline, because you get a lot of shots on guys who aren't necessarily seeing you coming, or it's not so straight up. And so Zach Bond, we saw him, he punched out like 6 or 7 balls this year, like forced fumbles. It was incredible. And so I'm for this. All right, last question that I want, because this inspired me here. What?
Also, sorry to finish this off. This is a far better drill in my estimation than Nick, you remember doing the drills, and Mikey too, as a running back, where
Oh.
you meet up with the linebackers and the running backs, and you just start punching dudes like
So
for 15 yards. It's just, come on, guys.
stupid. Well, I was going to say, what is your guys' favorite and least favorite drill in football? I'll go just that straight up tackling where you just one-on-one, there's cones, and you just run right at each other.
Oh,
It's not
so
even
stupid.
tackling. It's
I
just
went to the hospital after doing this drill as a sophomore. So I had to go up against this really big guy. I got knocked out. I got a terrible concussion. They had to go do a CAT scan on my brain. And so I don't really like that one. I developed a lot after that. I had to go to the place.
Well, the other thing with that drill is you don't have enough momentum to actually make a proper tackle. So people are twisting and twisting. And this is where you get all these knee things. So then you have these practice heroes who are in these 5-yard tackling drills where they just have to twist and pull awkwardly to try to get guys down. And it's the dumbest. If you're a coach and you do that drill, you're an idiot, period. Period.
Exactly.
It's not about like skill set. It's all about will and drive and just coaches trying to get people juiced. So like what we did, it was the same sort of situation. It wasn't the Oklahoma drill, so we didn't have to roll off our back, but we started in a 3-point stance or 2-point stance, depending on our position, and we just collided, and we had to hold it until they blew the whistle. So it would go like a minute sometimes. And the worst part about it was I always ended up finding myself going up against Tyler Varga, who ended up at the Indianapolis Colts for multiple years. Dude was an absolute freak of nature. Talk about like center of gravity being probably an inch off the ground, like trying to keep your ground and tearing both of your plantar fascia or plantar tendons, just trying to stand your ground. It's just the worst drill of all.
Scott, this is where you like look and see how the lines are shaping up, and then you maybe pretend to tie your shoe and let another guy go in front of you in line, so you don't have to go against Tyler Varga every time. Okay, that's how you.
Well, I didn't back down from the challenge. I wasn't gonna be a little.
Well, I would have backed down in a strategic way, so I don't go to the hospital again. That was a
Just
long
drill.
Drop your mouth guard. Oh, I can't pick it up.
Fix my knee brace. What is it, Mike?
My favorite drill as a running back is the ropes. I love the ropes. It's the only drill that you actually, it's really effective and you feel the progress and you're actually getting something out of it. And it's not just a waste of energy.
I prefer when it was more of like 1950s and you'd be stepping in and out of tires. Okay. More
That's stupid. Doing the tires is so stupid. You train yourself to have the most awkward form and give yourself such bad habits. It's horrible.
But it looks so cool. So that's what it's all about.
The other thing, like you're talking about the peanut punch, like as a ball carrier, when you're going against guys who are punching at the ball during a game, that is the most disruptive thing ever. Because as a ball carrier, once you're focusing on ball security, you are not focusing on finding the gap and hitting the hole. It is, and the worst thing ever are coaches who are like, hold on to the ball. You know that. Don't take the attention onto the ball versus the progress of the play. So like these drills are so effective. It's so disruptive for a ball carrier.
Mike, I
love that comment from a coach. Hold on to the ball. It's like they might as well just
those coaches are so, hey, make sure you hold on to the football. Thanks. Can I focus on the play instead?
That hold on to the ball is just like my comment right before we started recording today, where I said, hey, let's try our best out there today. Okay. So that's the same sort of energy. All right. There we have it. March Madness, all sorts of things, indie drills, LeBron, Stephen A. Smith. Good stuff. We will be back again on Monday. Thank you, everybody, for watching.